This is Monique. Time for one more project. This time we're going to let out the waste on some suit pants. So now we've got to do a few more things to make these pants fit just right. For these, we're going to let the waist out about an inch. If you had some suit pants anyway, if it's jeans with a waistband, totally different. But for suit pants, if you had a pair that you need to take in about an inch, same process with just one minor difference with where you put your new seam. Anyway, start by maybe taking a few pictures of where everything is tacked down so that you can put it back in the same similar kind of places to keep it all organized on the inside. But you got to take out all these places where it's tacked down. At the pockets and at the seam allowance is where you should look. Take out those tacks so that you can get in there and flatten out that seam. Now for this one we're going to let them out about an inch. So we're going to sew closer to the edge and make it a smaller seam allowance so that more of that fabric goes into the waist instead of into the seam allowance. So you want to start at the top edge of that and sew down and then overlap the existing seam by an inch or so that you can be sure that it's all smooth. You want to taper as slightly as possible. You don't want any sharp turn in there. That'll just make them pucker in a funny way once they're done. So now you want to be sure and take that old seam completely out. Even if you took them in and that seam is now part of the inside, you still want to take out the old seam so that you can open it up and let everything lay flat. Some of it's going to come out super easy, but at the waistband especially, it's going to be harder to get all of that old seam out. You can use the seam ripper to cut. Remember that it is a knife blade at the bottom of it, so don't stab through the pants, just cut the threads that are there. But cut and pull the stitches, cut them off shorter, just keep working until you get it all the way out. Like I said, it's going to be harder to do that at the waist because it's thicker, especially if you have some nice pants that have that little rubbery grippy part. That is nice for when you're wearing them to help keep your shirt tucked in, but it's a little bit thick for what we're doing here. It'll be helpful if you cut the old seam down at the bottom close to where your new seam overlaps it so that as you're taking it out, you don't accidentally take out too much and then have a mess down there. And look, there's an inch. We can see where the folds were for the old seam, and now there's an extra inch in the waist of these pants. Now we'll tack it back down on the inside. Make a short zigzag stitch that's almost no length at all, but it can be a little bit wider than the one it's going to default to. Fold those top edges down so that there's a point there instead of the chance for the raw edges sticking out. Be sure and clip all your threads. Don't leave a bunch of loose threads inside. Yuck! Then you're going to also do the tacks that we're at to the pocket and to the seam allowance. Now, these are only on the inside. Don't go all the way through. You will be sad. You'll have to take it out and redo it. So you want to catch the lining material that is that upper part of the pocket. You want to catch the seam allowance. You do not want to catch the outside of your pants. I mean, you can if you feel like it, but then you're just going to want to take it out and redo it. So it'll be a good practice for you, I'm sure. This is a place where I do pin things because it's awkward to get to and you have to spin it around and manipulate it. You can't just hold it flat and sew it and only sew those outer layers. So this is the perfect place to use your pins. In, out, one time. Hold things in line so that when you sew them, they're where you want them. And there we have it, an extra inch in the waist of these suit pants. Now this part is very important. It's very important that you see my elbow. No, wait, that wasn't it at all. Sorry, I forgot to be invisible this day. Very important that you iron it and you use steam and you use a pressing cloth. If you don't use the pressing cloth, you sometimes will get burn marks in your fabric. Score marks, shiny marks, I don't know what it might be made of and what you might get. But if you use the pressing cloth, it'll protect you from that. Use a little extra mist, get you some steam in there so that you can take out the old seam and make the new seam. Thanks for joining me. I hope that was helpful. Remember, blessed is he who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, or stands in the way of the sinners, or sits in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. See you next time.